Okay, so hello everyone. We are here with amazing girls. We're going to talk about feminism and environmentalism. We have Macy from Fridays for Future United States, Fiona from also Fridays for Future United States, and Sophia from Colombia. We are really happy to have you girls. And well, I'm going to present myself before we start. So I'm Lourdes, I'm from Argentina. I'm actually moving to the United States, so I know these girls very well. I'm really happy to be here. My pronouns are she, her, just in case. And my favorite color, that is something I would ask you guys to please do, is yellow, because I really like it. So I'm gonna popcorn it or like pass it to Macy so she can present herself. And please, Macy, say your favorite color and why you like it.
Hi, I'm Maisie. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Fridays for Future USA and Fridays for Future Washington. And my favorite color is light pink. I think it's because I love like flowers that are pink, and also, I don't know, it's just a fun color for me. And I'll pass it to Fiona.
Hi, I'm Fiona. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Fridays for Future USA and also Fridays for Future Washington. And I would say my favorite color is green. And then I'll pass it to Sophia.
Hi, I'm Sophia. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Colombia. And also from Fridays for Future Bogota. That it's the capital. And my favorite color, it's blue. Like all of its tones. I really love blue.
Okay, so we're going to start with the first questions. This question is for Macy and Sophie. So I want to know what it's like to strike as a woman in your country and if there are any restrictions when you do. So Sophie, do you want to go first?
Okay, thank you so much for giving me the question. Actually, in Colombia, we have a lot of restrictions to strike. Even though it's supposed to be a constitutional right, the police doesn't protect the protests, and like in any kind of protest, it has been like really evident the violence against women in protests, especially sexual violence, and it often is justified by the by arguments such as it was rebellion or something like that. So it's not that they offer guarantees for the strikes, and especially if you're a woman, you will like have that pressure more. So that basically also for the 8M, there were a lot of police officers, the SMAT, that is the SWAT from Colombia, something like that. And even though there were human rights like protectors, like trying to separate the protest from the police and everything, you could also feel the tension, and it's like really it increases the risk of having like some kind of sexual harassment in the street when you're in a protest. So yeah, but mostly that.
Yeah, I can feel that. I feel like most Latin American countries are suffering from that, so that's really horrible. So I'm really sorry for that, and I hope in the future changes. So Macy, sorry, what about you?
There are no restrictions in Washington that I know of, but as a young adult, there are like some boundaries that are there because I've had meetings with elected officials, and I've seen I've felt like I've been babysat by them when really I just want to express my voice and talk about the climate crisis. But there are no restrictions that I know of in Washington.
Okay, that's amazing. And I'm really sorry that people treat you like that, because it's not fair at all. So Fiona, going for the second question, how has climate change affected you as a woman, and how is that different from men? Have you seen any type of difference with men, if they treat them different, or what can you tell me about it?
I think I personally haven't experienced a lot, but like, because I live in Washington and there isn't a big difference. But from what I've heard, there are a lot of other areas in the world and just like other states, even in the USA, where women are facing like so much more of the effects. Like a lot of it goes back into like misogyny. Like a lot of those effects are just becoming more and more apparent, and everything that works against women is just becoming greater and greater. I guess my biggest worry with it is that the differences between the rights men and women have is just going to continue to grow with climate change unless we like start like nipping it in the butt now.
Yes, yes, I totally heard it. I mean, it's really difficult. Different countries are like really different. I have heard that in some countries, women are not even allowed to speak. So it's awesome that you guys can at least say your rights and stand up and have this privilege. So anyway, I want to hear this answer of this question from everyone. So the question is, tell us what inspires you to be an activist and to keep fighting for a planet. What is that keeps you motivated from this? So Macy, do you want to go first?
Sure. Something that keeps me motivated to fight for the climate crisis is the fact that this is our future, and it's really important that we protect not only our futures, but future generations to come's future, because it's a crisis and people aren't treating it like a crisis, and it's really frustrating. And so I do everything I can to fight for climate crisis, so that I can feel at the end of the day that I've done something, I've done all I can.
Yeah, that's a really strong feeling. So I feel awesome for you, and I hope you really keep fighting for a planet. So Fiona, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think my reasoning is kind of similar to Maisie's. Like, I want like my kids and my siblings and my friends, like kids and any generations in the future, to get to against like nature and the earth as we've gotten to before like it's too late, because if everything keeps going the way it is, like they won't get the opportunities to like go outside and play in like parks and everything with like good air quality and like green trees and like life every.
Yes, of course, that's really important. Like I feel like even future generations in like 5 years don't even know what snow will be if we keep going like this. So yeah, that's amazing. Sophie, do you want to give us your point of view?
Yeah, actually, it's just Colombia has been facing this like armed conflict since a long time ago. It's like a real problem here. So I grew up with the stories of my grandma telling me how she and her family like had to leave from the countryside, leave their land and everything due to the violence, and actually those like family members that stayed were killed. So somehow that turned into a privilege for me to live in the city right now, and that is why like having both perspectives and stories, my fight, it's not just for the climate crisis, it's like for this climate injustice, like social injustice, that the defenders that are in like our territory in the countryside and like more inside the country where there is no like state presence, can be able to protect their land without being like displaced as my family, without being killed, and without being put at risk for their lives. So, and most of the time these projects actually are financed by the government and extractivism. So yeah, the war is like a huge dynamic and everything is connected. So that's my motivation. So no one else has to go through like leaving their house, their home. So yes.
Yes, hopefully our leaders actually change something about this, because we want to keep fighting for this and we're not gonna stop. So that would be awesome, guys. Thank you so much for saying that. All of you, I love to hear all of your opinions. So let's go to the next question. It will be for Sophie and Fiona. What ideas do you have to like change this climate crisis? Have you ever thought about it? I don't know, whatever you have ever thought and said, like, this might change the climate crisis, this might actually help, or I don't know. Fiona, do you want to go first?
In my opinion, I feel like the most important thing we can do is educate people about it, because I know before I knew like everything about the climate crisis and just like how big of an impact it's going to have on everyone's lives and future generations, like I didn't think it was that important to take action. So I feel like it's so important to like help people understand how much our lives are going to change if they don't take action, because I feel like it's really hard to take action if you don't understand why you need to.
Yes, I think the same way. I think people, if they do actually the research about how to help climate change, a lot of things could have changed, but not so many people actually search for this. Anyway, Sophie, what's your opinion about it?
I will start as a compliment of what Fiona just said, that if we want to have like real change of something, we really need to have the knowledge for it, and everything starts in school, university, etc. So it's like our duty, well, not only our duty, but the government's duty, to actually implement efficient educational programs, so it can be accessible to everyone and not just privileged information for those who have access to internet. Because with the pandemic, like half of the children in Colombia were like stayed without school, and it's something that goes with social issues because of that, because not everyone has the same access to the tools to protect their land, to the information to know how to take care of our territory. And also, I'd say that the first thing when it comes to decision making is listen to the communities that are actually on the front lines, the ones that are facing every day the problematics, because they are the ones that know what is to face the climate crisis, and they are the ones that know what is failing, what they don't have in their hands to actually act, and stop like making everything just a paper and theory, because theory in this case is almost nothing if we don't listen to the people that face every day these issues.
Yes, of course. And as you said, there are so many people that is not able to access to internet, how they will know. It's super important that actually leaders take education of environmentalism really hard on future generation. So we have reached to our last question, and this will be for everyone. So, okay, if you had the chance to do something to say something, sorry, to our global leaders, what would it be? Like, if you had the chance, just imagine you're in the middle of a reunion with all the leaders of the global world, and you are going to say something that inspires them or make them change, even if you're just gonna say, you know, whatever you want to say, just say it. But yeah, what would you say? Let's start with Macy.
I'll keep it brief because I would want to say a lot to the leaders. But most importantly, I would want to say, please listen, because we're not just talking to you guys to just talk. We have important things to say. We have things we want done. We want to save our earth. We want to save our home. We want to save our futures. And leaders just aren't listening to the kids and like people like us that are so passionate about the environment. And it's really frustrating because you want to see the difference and you see all these promises being made and there's they're so empty. Like no more empty promises is a sign we use in the climate strike for a reason, because there are so many empty promises being told to us. And it's so incredibly frustrating, again, because you just want to see the difference being made, and you want to be confident that you'll see green, the color green in nature again. You don't want to be looking around and just seeing the color beige. I want to be able to say, hey, look kids, that's a bird. Like, you know what I mean? It's really tough because we're fighting so hard, and we have been fighting for so long. And the scientists have given us the solutions to fix this climate crisis, but there's just so little action being taken. Even though people are saying things, it's not actually happening. So it's just overall super frustrating. Please listen, take action. This is the biggest crisis we will face.
Yes, I feel like the promises are like when I say I'm gonna start diet Monday, and that never happens. But anyway, Sophie, do you want to go next?
Yes, I can go actually. I wrote down some thoughts on this because like I needed to process that. So it's not just for future generations that we need them to act. It's for today's generations, for those who allowed thousands of people every day to be left without a roof over their heads, without their land, without their family, and without a dignified life. And my message goes to actually those leaders that keep thinking that successful like enterprises and everything, it's exploiting people of the global south to actually be on the cover of like magazines like Forbes and things like that. And that's not success. That's just being like a miserable human being. And also my message goes to them because they call themselves the leaders of the world because like they thought they could make it. But we, from like the people that it's actually facing this climate crisis effects right now, there are few humanitarian like aids to them. It's not enough. So their photos with the most affected communities won't make a change. And these are just like empty solutions, empty promises to be in a magazine, to have diplomatic events. But this will not solve the ecological and economic like crisis that the global north actually has left in Latin America, Africa, Asia. So I'll just say that the change must be done now.
Yeah,
beyond
so we need
just
action,
a picture.
not promises. We need
Yes.
change, right? Okay.
Exactly.
So thank you so much, Sophie. Fiona, do you want to give us your opinion about this?
Yeah, I think like if I had to say anything, it would be like take action. We've been talking about it for so long, and government officials, like they need to start listening to scientists and making bills and taking action instead of just telling us that they're going to do it over and over again, because like they've been telling us they're going to do it for ages and nothing's been done, and the climate crisis is only getting worse and worse. So like I would just tell them to take action and also to listen to what people are saying, like listen to scientists, listen to the people protesting, like because things are only going to get worse unless they start doing something about it.
Yes, I totally agree. People have to realize that science is real. We don't have to discuss about it anymore. This is happening, and we have proof. People are actually dying from this. Animals are dying. Ecosystems are in a disaster. So that was the last question, guys, girls, actually. So really happy for everyone that joined this call and everyone that is watching. Thank you so much for joining. We hope that you guys enjoy this really, really much. And we hope to see you in next or future roundtables or live that we make in Fridays for Future United States. Please make sure to watch her Instagram and watch these girls' Instagram. They're amazing activists. And thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time. So yeah, that's it. Bye bye. Hey, so that was the first roundtable, but due to different time zones, we have to make another one. So please stay tuned to watch these amazing women talk about their views of, feminism. Hello, everyone. We are here with amazing girls that are gonna talk about feminism and activism and how that is related. We're also gonna share a lot of facts and how is to do activism as a girl. Like, is it really that difficult? Are there any restrictions? Like, how do we feel about it? So yeah, to start with, so you guys get to know all these girls first before we start rushing it with the questions. I'm gonna present myself. I'm Lourdes. I'm gonna be the moderator. I'm from Argentina and also from United States. And the question that I'm gonna ask you girls is like, what's your favorite artist? Because mine, for example, would be like Harry Styles, or I don't know, Dua Lipa maybe. I don't know what you girls like, but Ashley, do you want to go first and introduce yourself? Okay.
Sure.
Awesome.
My name is Ashley Nguyen. I'm from Georgia in the United States, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm very excited to speak at this roundtable with everyone. I think my favorite male artist is probably Harry Styles or this band called The Neighborhood, but my favorite female artist is SZA. Maria, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. Oh, hi. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm Maria, she, her, my pronouns. I'm from Mexico. And I think my favorite artist, yes, it should be considered an artist. It's a pianist. It's Ludovico Einaudi. So yeah, I love it so much. Then maybe Nikki.
Hi everyone, well, I'm Nikki, I'm from Argentina, and I will say a band from Argentina, so you will not know which band is, but it's called Conociendo Rusia, and I really like it. And I pass it to Mitzi.
Hey everyone, so I'm Mitzi Janelle Tan from the Philippines. I use she, her pronouns, and my favorite artist is a Filipino-American rapper. Her name is Ruby Ibarra, and she's really cool because she raps in 3 different languages all in one song. Well, sometimes it's just 2 languages. So it's Tagalog and Waray, which are both Philippine languages, and then English. So check her out because it's really cool. And it's all about like women empowerment and women of color empowerment even.
Thank you girls so much for sharing your thoughts in your lives and open a little bit to us about your lives. So we're gonna start with questions. Okay, we're gonna begin with our first question, and it's like, what's it like to strike as a woman in your country, and are there any restrictions? Because like there's a lot of people around the world that don't know what's going on in your country. So like, please tell us more about it. Mitzi, do you want to go first?
So in my country, there are technically no restrictions. So you can strike, you can do whatever, but there are added threats and like restrictions that aren't legal, but they're there in society. So an example is how we're usually seen as tools by the government. So a military official actually said in an interview that young women wearing short shorts, calling for the protection of the environment, are doing it to entice young men to join the rebel army. So the mental gymnastics that had to go in there for this general to say that we are only tools to entice young men, and then they also reduced our advocacy of calling for the protection of the environment to something as terrorism. It's just all these things coming together, and then there's also, of course, how our environmental defenders, our fishing communities, our farmers, our indigenous women, they are more vulnerable to harassment and by the military and by the government. And that's the difficulties of being a woman as an activist here in the Philippines.
And have you seen like any difference between men? Do you think that like men are more like able to do this whole stuff, or like?
in a way, men feel safer in activism. So it's harder for women to get into activism because there's so much that can go wrong. Like, one thing that my mom is always reminding me, you cannot get arrested by the police because they won't just keep you in jail, they could rape you in jail, and that happens. And that's the difficulties of becoming an activist in the Philippines, because there's so many other things. Not like, it's not just activists who are impacted by this, but since you are an activist, there's an added risk to you as a woman. But also, we also see that it's not just about women, but it's also about like looking at where majority of the women are. Majority of the women aren't students. Majority of women are, again, environmental defenders. They're farmers, they're workers, they're fishing communities. And the difference with them is, aside from having to, work outside, work on the land, work in the seas, they also have to work at home and take care of the cleaning, take care of the children, take care of everything. And during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic especially, a lot of women had to give up their jobs, their livelihoods, because as school went online, they were the ones who were pushed into teaching their kids. And these are our environmental activists, our fishing community, our fishing women, our farmers, and a lot of them had to give up what they've been doing their entire lives just because women are seen as the carers of the house and children, and only them.
Yes, I mean, in that way, it can be really hard for women. There are so many women that are not able to do their jobs because of this. So thanks so much for sharing that. And I'm sending a lot of like energy, and hopefully things get better for you. And Maria, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. I think it's circumstances are very similar. Like there's not like explicit restrictions, but the social environment restricts you from doing so much, especially in Mexico regarding the violent environment that there's here for women, because of the gender violence that there's against us. And I think that it's something that limits you from doing not only activism, but anything, like even the smallest things, like going to the supermarket to boycott. You cannot go walking alone on the street because you might not arrive to your destination. Small things like that. But for men, that might seem ridiculous.
In fact, like, isn't like Mexico one of the places in Latin America that has more feminicized? Like, it's really scary. Yeah.
Yes. In Mexico, we have around, that we know, obviously, because there's probably women that get murdered and are not in the statistics, but then women every day don't get back home, and that's horrible. We're the most dangerous country in Latin America to be a woman, and one of the most dangerous countries in the world. So that's something that restricts you from doing anything, from having a normal life, from doing so much activities. I was telling some people on a feminist meeting the other day that it used to happen to me and many of my friends when we went to school. You go to school with so much illusion to learn, to make projects, to just make this world a better place. But on the way to your school, you get attacked by men on the streets, on the public transportation, on the bus, on the corner of your school. So I remember, arriving school and seeing some of my female friends crying on the restrooms. Like, I just can't believe that this has to happen to us every day, that when we want to get to school. So if that restricts you from doing small things or normal things for life, it obviously restricts you when you want to do activism, because you're obviously much more vulnerable to receive attacks. On the last physical protest that we made, I was not even claiming to be a feminist. I was there striking for climate justice. And there were men attacking me for that. Like, oh, you should be a feminist. Like, shut up. And it's like, I'm not even claiming to be a feminist and you're attacking me. So that kind of things, obviously.
And even if you are, so what? Like, you know, like you can do whatever you want if you're a feminist. Like, it's nothing against them. It's just about equality. And that's what a lot of men don't get. I mean, it happens everywhere, I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to comment that.
No. Yeah, of course. And the way that some people use feminist as an insult, right? Like, yes, I am a feminist and I'm proud of that because that keeps me alive. So, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't remember well, but I think in Argentina it's like the second or the third country of Latin America where girls get like killed, raped, you know, a lot of things. I think if I'm not wrong, it's like every 26 or 28 hours a girl here like goes through that. So it's really horrible, and I'm really sorry that this is happening. So thank you so much for sharing. And now we're going to move on the second question. The second question goes to Maria and Nikki. So how has climate change affected you as a woman, and how is that different that when you see men? Like, so Nikki, do you want to go first?
So being a climate activist and a woman and feminist here in Argentina, and I think all over the world, it's a complex combination, but something that it has to happen. Like, for example, my first strike, it was when I was 15 years old, and I went to a woman international strike here in Argentina, and it's part of who I am. It's part of my identity, and in a way, I didn't know that at that time, but in a way, I'm a climate activist because I'm feminist, because I grow up thinking that the solution is collective, and I understand that because I understand that for the feminist movement, the thing is to create is a lot of people in the streets demanding for change. Every day I went to a strike demanding equality for, well, women, men's, and all genders. And then I understand that it also, like, we are also most vulnerable because of the climate crisis, but it's really related to who I am, and also like the two fights are also like because it doesn't make sense to fight against climate change if we do also fight for like all injustice in general. Like, it doesn't make sense in my mind. So yeah, I really think that these two fights has to be not only interrelated, but also like part of our identity and part of all the things that we decide to do and also not to do in our activism. And something that I really think it's very interesting is that all the climate youth movements all over the world are led by women. It's so interesting, like, because it's very different with other movements. So I think that's a very interesting point to talk, like why we are all women also leading this movement. Like, I know.
Yeah, I totally get what you say. I think you try to say like social justice and climate justice, like they have to go together. I think like in MAPA they have talked about, so like go check also Instagram of MAPA. There are so awesome content about that, and they're talk about a lot of climate crisis and the people that are actually being affected by this and how they're suffering like socially. So it would be awesome if you guys could check that. Anyway, Maria, how do you see this? Do you agree with Nikki, or is it different in Mexico?
I agree in so many things. And I think that's also why I find so much connection with Nikki sometimes and all the women here. Because I am a climate activist thanks to feminism, because there I realized that the structural mechanisms that, oppress women, exploit nature, and cause climate crisis are the same. So it absolutely makes no sense to try to think that we can change the climate without changing the society in general. we need a system change. So yeah, I totally can relate with that, but also that, let's say that it is different on how it affects women, because thanks to feminism, thanks to the gender violence that you live every day, you have that perspective, you have that empathy with the nature, with the most vulnerable communities, and that's something that men might not have because they don't live it. They are not one of the most affected communities. So of course they might educate themselves and be good allies and try to understand, but at first sight, they just don't live under the same perspective. So I think that's something that not, I will say like it affects you or it affects us, but it definitely makes us to be impact on a different way, on a more deep way, obviously. And I think also, for example, in high school, my high school, it was in a rural community, and we conducted some research on how women are involved, which is the role of women by creating sustainable rural communities. And then I realized that even though we were on a rural community, we were very privileged because many women don't get to understand what's going on with the climate, with the environment, simply because they didn't have access to education. And that's something that happens here in Mexico a lot. Women are disproportionately affected on the way of having access to education. And if you are not educated on what the environment is, on what the climate is, on what are your rights, your human rights regarding the environment, you're obviously not going to know that something terrible is going on and that you're being impacted by that. So I will say that it's something also that we should pay a lot more attention to. The United Nations reported on a while that the sixth more efficient way to combat climate change is to educate women, because given that we are one of the most vulnerable communities, we have that empathy on what the climate crisis is and why we need social justice. So yeah, I will say basically that.
Yes, I just wanted to like literally because that was so good. Like that's all you put all my thoughts, and I feel like what every woman feel in like that speech, that was so amazing. I mean, like that's what we were talking in another roundtable with MAPA, that education and everything is there are some people that say like, why didn't they just search on the internet and stuff? And sometimes it's difficult because people don't even have internet. Like, so it's really great that you're sharing this, and it was so awesome. Like seriously, I'm impressed. So we're gonna go for the next question. This is for Mitzi, Maria, and Nikki. Tell us what inspires you to be an activist and to keep fighting for our planet.
The reason why I became an activist, like, okay, backstory. Growing up, I've always seen the typhoons. I've always been that annoying kid going up to like adults and being like, hey, you have to change what you're doing because greenhouse gas emissions and the ozone layer and sun and radiation and shit. But I never put the typhoons and the greenhouse gases that I was learning in school together, because climate education is so foreign and technical and westernized that it didn't tell us what we were already experiencing. And it's so focused on individual lifestyle change. So that just became like this thing that I used to do. And then in 2017, I was able to talk to an indigenous leader of our land. And they were telling me about how they were being harassed and displaced and killed and militarized and all these really bad things. And then he laughed and then he shrugged and he was like, that's why we have to fight back. And then he just kept talking. And I was like, it's so simple. And then I literally just started crying because I was like, it's so simple. It should be that simple. We have to be activists. We have to join the fight because we have no choice anymore. This is our planet. We have to do it. And that really just has pushed me forward ever since. A lot of people actually ask me, how come I don't seem to get burnt out and I don't get tired? I do get tired. I will put that out there. But I feel like at this point, my activism no longer stems from a place of fear and anger, but instead a more sustainable place of love. And love is such a sustainable source. And that sounds super cheesy, like, oh, love, it'll save the world. But it's not. It's not like that. It's climate justice means tackling systems of oppression and injustice, and it's so difficult. We need something that won't burn us out, but instead will be a steady flame that will light the path. And that is what love is. We need love to stick to difficult decisions. We need love to win revolutions.
Yeah, that was so cute, but so cheesy at the same. I mean, it's right. Like there's no discussion about it. I totally agree with that. I still in the stage of anger sometimes, so I usually burn out, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck off. I don't want to talk to anyone anymore. Like, let's burn the world and whatever. Let's all die. But sometimes it happens, yeah, that I'm like, let's do it. Let's go together and want to sing High School Musical with MAPA people, and I don't know, we are in this together and all that stuff. But it's so awesome to hear this, and also from your experience to tell more people that actually activism can also be led by love. So that was amazing. So Maria, do you want to go next? Tell us what inspires you.
Yes, sure. First, I think it's really, important to point out that this topic of eco-anxiety, that it's something that affects everyone, that it's, that gets to know what's going on with the climate crisis. But I think it especially affects climate activists, because you're all the time in contact with information of what's going on in the world, what's going on in the Philippines, in Argentina, in Africa, in lots of countries. And you put all that together on your mind, and you realize how is everything interconnected. And sometimes it's very, very overwhelming. And you feel so small. Like, this is such a systemic trouble. What am I going to do, right? So sometimes, obviously, we get tired, because we get emotionally and physically tired, especially making activism is hard in the streets, because you have the sunlight over you all the time, and you have to wear the masks and scream and run and be all the time aware of the police not coming after you. So it is obviously hard to strike in person, but also it is hard to do everything online, because we get tired of being on meetings all day and solving so many things at the same time. It's obviously tiring, and obviously I get tired sometimes and I need to take breaks. It's something that I love about the activism community, that we have breaks, that sometimes you get burnt out and you say, okay, you know what, I can deal with this for 3 days. And for 3 days, even people takes care of you not joining meetings. And if you join meetings, they kick you out, or if they see you awake at late hours. So I think that's something amazing about the activism community, that we take care of each other. And it's something that I haven't seen in any other project, in any other community that I belong to. So I will say that that's one of the things that keeps me here, all of you, because you inspire me so much every day, and I get to see, like, if they are being able to struggle with all of that, then I might be able to struggle with what I'm facing here and also support them. So I think that's very important. And I will also say that it's been, I don't know, maybe part of my personality since I was like 6 years. I wanted to get vegan and not use plastics and stuff, because I just simply can't see social injustices happening and not do anything about it. Like, it just doesn't fit on my mind. If you see people that it's being attacked, it's being damaged, the environment, you have to do something. Like, otherwise, why are you here for? And I will say that I realized a couple months ago that activism is my meaning in life. That's what am I here for. and because you also realize that activism is not only striking on the streets, it's part of it, and it's really valuable and important because we need to take activism to the streets. But activism, it's a mindset, it's a way of life, it's a lifestyle, it's the way you build relationships with people. Like, so yeah, I will say I'm an activist because that's the only thing that has sense to me.
Yes, you're so right. And I feel like we take care of each other because, as you say, we feel so small. I don't know if you have ever seen the galaxy, but we're like nothing compared to that. We're just like little tiny humans complaining about climate change. And it's a big deal because you know what? We are the ones going up to the door and say, we are not getting this. We are not settling it down for this. So like if you're out there watching this live and just not settling down, like we are so proud of you, and I'm so proud of the girls being here and to keep fighting for planet, even though you know, some leaders just don't do anything. But yeah, so we will move on. Nikki, the same question. Tell us what inspires you to be an activist and to keep fighting for a planet.
Well, I think what motivates me to fight for the climate crisis or climate justice, even though I know the road is long and it's difficult, are my friends, my fellowship in the movement in Argentina and around the world, with whom fighting for a more just world seems easier and even fun sometimes. And I think what also like motivates me is on the one hand the fear of thinking about the present and the future, and on the other hand knowing that we are still in time to change it. And I think that's why I think we all here feel so much pressure to do things all the time, because we are in time and we feel a lot of responsibility in ourselves that, okay, so we are in time, we have a lot of things to do, but really a lot of things to do, and sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. And I'm sure that we can change it and stop the climate crisis and build a more just world, because every day I'm more and more surprised by what we are capable of, like as a movement. And it's really incredible. If we like thought what Friday for Future in international and in the local groups did since 2 years, it's amazing. Like we are an amazing movement and we have a really, really a long road, but I really think we can do it. But also taking care of ourselves and of the others.
Yes, of course, that's really important that when we strike, we just make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and the people that are striking. In Fridays for Future, that would have larger numbers of people coming to strikes is sometimes it's like a really heavy, you know, bag to take on when there's so many people you don't know like what to do, because it's like you want to protect themselves but also protect yourself. It's just so difficult. It would be so much easier if just people listened instead of like just ignore us. So Ashley, what about you?
Personally, I feel like it's an ethical obligation at this point to be an activist. Although I may not see the consequences of climate change that drastically in my life, like personally, I've only experienced like warmer weather, inconsistent weather patterns. I'm aware, because it's the age of technology, I'm aware that other countries face more severe events such as flooding, lack of resources due to deforestation and such. So I feel like I need to take part and take advantage of the fact that I have a voice, because it's so important that people take advantage of their platforms, spread awareness, and overall be an activist. Personally, in my own life, I started at a very late age. Like I didn't start until I believe last year, because I live in a society where patriarchal values are still prevalent. Like although the United States prides itself on being very very forward, being very progressive, a world leader even. There are still many individuals and families I know where girls are expected to sit at the table quietly as the men at the table discuss politics, where girls have to be in the kitchen preparing food as men can watch TV. It's just very difficult to speak your mind at times, but over time I realized it's urgent because this is a very popular quote, but there's no planet B. Like, in order to ensure our future, we need to do everything we can to. And that is why I'm an activist.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing that, and I totally agree with you. So yeah, let's move on to the next question. This will be for Ashley, Nikki, and Maria. Do you have, like, what ideas do you have to counter the climate crisis? Have you ever had any mindset of saying, like, if we actually did this, we will actually have a change, you know? Ashley, do you want to go first?
Sure. Firstly, I would encourage others to engage in conversation with policymakers and advocate for real changes to be made. Although individuals all possess a carbon footprint and invest efforts into reducing their own emissions, large corporations are responsible for a majority of the carbon dioxide emissions that are contributing to global warming. I have this statistic. So according to the Carbon Disclosure Project, there were about 100 companies that were at fault for greenhouse gas emissions between 1988 and 2018, meaning we must advocate to those who write legislation and evoke systematic change that would ensure a better future for us all. So I would recommend that people research their local representatives and contact them regarding their concerns with climate change. But I acknowledge this comes from a position of privilege because in the US we're able to voice our opinions freely to our representatives, and I understand that in certain countries this can be dangerous, especially if misogynistic expectations in society may hinder a woman's ability to express their voice. However, as a young person myself, I understand how intimidating it may be to advocate such a large global issue, but I would also like to reiterate the fact that our generation is empowered to combat climate change through education and activism. So as mentioned before, we can be environmentally conscious of the consequences of our personal actions and aim to implement new lifestyle choices that would limit waste as well as reduce our carbon footprints. And these adjustments can be as simple as drinking a plant-based milk rather than cow milk, or choosing to carpool with friends rather than drive to an event separately. And in the age of information connection, you can become involved with environmental activism organizations such as Fridays for the Future, or personally, I'm involved in Georgia for the Planet, and I take advantage of opportunities to be involved in my local community. So since I've joined this organization during my sophomore year of high school, so when I was about 15 to 16, I planned as well as oversaw webinars that provided information to our audiences about reducing their carbon footprint. And recently we conducted an eco-friendly resolution show where we compiled a list of local businesses that resolved to reduce waste and encourage support for them. But in addition, we have advocated to hold Georgia Power accountable for their plans to spend up to about $7 billion to dispose of millions of tons of coal ash, which is a toxic type of pollution, and leaking pits around some of Georgia's current and closed coal plants. And these disposal pits do not include liners that will prevent these toxins from entering our waterways and poisoning our drinking water. So while climate change may pose a crisis upon our future and threaten our livelihoods, it also poses a danger today in the way it affects our health.
you're so right. There's so many things that people can do and take action to without waiting for other people to actually make big changes. Although it can be a little hard for people actually to make that step because not so many people do it. I totally agree with you. Some people could and can make it. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Ashley. Mitzi, do you want to go next? Or no, sorry, this question is not for Mitzi. Goodbye, Mitzi. Nikki, do you want to go for next? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, of course, like we don't have the magic solution for the climate crisis, but we have a lot of thoughts that can help. For example, one basic is to listen to the communities that are on the ground. It's like the first step, because I'm not the one that I have the answer and I can't decide for everyone. But yes, I can. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is not working very well today. But I really think that's the first step, and it's also related to what we was talking about, that the climate crisis is not also demanding the reduction of the greenhouse gases, but also changing a lot of logics. For example, that one person, for example, the president can decide for everyone. If, for example, one thing that is happening right now in Argentina is that there is a province, a community that it's Chubut, and they are all saying that they don't want mega mining, but the governor are like, they don't give a shit and they don't want to give to do the mega mining. And it's really frustrating because what's the democratic, what's like, what is the I forgot the word. Democracy is the word in English. Okay, what is democracy for you? Like all of your people, like you are betraying your people, and I really think that's the first step. And also, of course, we should like change for in a just transition our energy, the way that we are producing, the way that we are consuming. Like the climate change put us in an uncomfortable place because we need to be brave enough to think a future that is really, really very different from what we know, because we need to change literally everything, the way that we like treat each other, but also the way that what we eat, what we use, what we like. It's really complicated, but of course the first step for that is to change the way that we are consuming and the way that we are producing. The first step, the energy, because it's the most polluter. And yeah.
Yes, right now for the people that doesn't know, I will put you in context. There are so many problems with Argentina. Like mega mining is just like this from the list of problems that we have in Argentina right now. So I totally get what Nikki says. Like we go strike. I remember on August last year, like half of Argentina were on fire and like the government wasn't doing anything. But I guess that is happening in many countries in the world. So I guess everyone could relate to this. Maria, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the people here already said amazing things, but I will only add, I stand for a more inclusive and intersectional movement, and not only the movement, but intersectional solutions to the climate crisis. I do think that we have to be radically inclusive with all people, with all minorities, with all communities, because otherwise, if we don't do that, those solutions will simply won't work for everyone. And going hand in hand with that, we have to make the narrative of the climate crisis more regional. Like it's not the same what's going on in Europe, that what's going on in Latin America, in MAPA countries, in the Pacific, in many of the global South countries. And because the situations and the circumstances are not the same, the same solutions cannot apply. So we need to regionalize the narrative of the climate crisis and also the solutions. So I will say that, make a more inclusive climate movement, regionalize the narrative and have regional solutions to the climate crisis. And all those things go hand in hand because as well as the governments cannot leave our voices behind while making policies and propositions about the climate and the environment, the climate movement cannot ignore that MAPA people and women and most affected communities have specific demands. So I will say that, and education, of course, because of what I was saying previously, we need education for most affected communities, because that way we increase the possibilities of those people to understand what's happening and to understand that they have the right to protest for that. They have the right to say, hey, this is affecting me, do something about it. Like, not for 2030, now, right now, because communities are flooding now, because forests are burning now. And this is a quote from Mitzi that I just love. And it's, if your house it's burning, you don't wait 10 years to call the firefighters, So global leaders and people, decision makers, really need to understand that.
Yeah, obviously. I think no one will call in 10 years. Like in 10 years, like your whole neighborhood will there won't be anything, right? So yeah, I totally get it. And that was a really interesting point. I think with social justice, racial justice, and education, justice, because so many people is not like, how you say, like into education, they cannot access to that. There's so many people that doesn't even know in which country they are on. Like, it's so sad, and I really hope this changes in the future, because we need education for everyone. So yeah, let's go to our last question. So I want to hear this from everyone. So if you had the chance to say something to our global leaders, what would it be? What would you say? Like, if you just had the chance to say something? I know it's like a big deal, but let's just make it like really clear what our message will be and how we will say it. Ashley, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So to give context, if I had the chance to speak to a global leader, I would emphasize that there are less than 7 years left until Earth's carbon budget is depleted based on current emissions. And as a consequence, this total depletion would result in further turmoil because there will be more flooding, wildfires, famines, displacements, which everyone has acknowledged beforehand. So my message would be, it is urgent that global leaders honor their prior commitments to the Paris Agreement and reduce their climate pollution, because as we all have emphasized, the time to act is now.
Yes, that's totally right, and I totally agree. Maria, do you want to go next?
Yes, sure. I will say that global leaders are also failing on realizing that everything is systematically connected. Because when they, talk in international forums, they say, yes, environment, rivers, plants, we'll think about that later. And it's like, no, it's also economics, and also politics. It's also, gender justice, racial justice. It's everything connected. So they're failing us on realizing that everything is connected. And therefore, the climate crisis that they are feeling is making all inequalities deeper. And this is something I was talking to Mitzi the other day. Like, they are digging their own grave, but they won't be the first to fall on it. Will be the most vulnerable communities. And that's something that they're failing to realize, and I want to believe I really want to believe that they're failing to realize that, because if they do know it, then our global leaders are just evil and shouldn't be there.
Yes, I mean, we all feel the same way. I feel like global leaders are all like doing things that only benefit themselves. And it's impressive that it happens in most of countries. I don't want to say all, but in most countries, people choose for the person that's gonna only think about themselves. Like, how do we get to that point, you know? Like, it's crazy to think about it. Mitzi, do you want to go first? Second, no, third. Oh my god, I'm so bad right now.
Mine is simple. Nikki already said it actually. Listen to the people. It's not hard. That's literally all you need to do. People, scientists, marginalized communities, indigenous groups have already been saying what needs to be done, what we need to do. Stop picking money. Pick the people.
Yes, totally. If only they listened, I mean, that would be awesome. And then probably the plan will work. But for now, we're sticking to fighting with our activism. Nikki, you're our final candidate in front of global leaders.
Yeah, I would say that we are tired of blah blah blah, because yes, we understand that changes take time, but it's time that we don't have, and the world will remember them by the action they take in the country, that we will not forget what they did or they didn't. And they are not world leaders to be afraid and stay in their comfort zone, but because for that you can like work of something else. Like, they are in a historic place that can change history or destroy it. And if you are a world leader, if you have this position during this time, you have a lot of responsibility of changing our present and also our future. And we are going to be here to like be controlling that, or also demanding that, and pressure them to do the right thing.
Yes, that's totally right. That was a really good point. We really need they to listen. Like, I think it's our main point right here, that they just need to listen, because we are here to be heard and we're not gonna stop making noise. So that was our last question. Thank you so much, girls, for joining and speaking up your mind and sharing all these things. I'm sure it will help so many people to get an open-minded about what's going on around the world, because sometimes you're just in one place and just see what surrounds you. So that this will be awesome. And please check their social media. They post a lot of things that is amazing, and a lot of activism and feminism and everything. So please check that out. Please check also our social media, Fridays for Future United States and Fridays for Future May page and Fridays for Future MAPA. And yeah, thank you girls so much for joining. And yeah, it's time to say bye-bye. So yeah, goodbye and see you next time.